I'd like to call our Board of Adjustment meeting to order for October 16th. And before we get started, I'd like to introduce our board. Starting
Brian Flowers.
David Martin.
Neil Vera.
Kathy Slagle.
Frank Lamia.
Great. Thank you. So our first order of business is approval of the minutes for September 18th, 2023.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you. So our first order of business is the election of office. Do we do our agenda items first, and then we can wait to do the election of the officers?
Yeah,
First, okay.
Your bylaws are election of the officers and
Okay.
approval of the calendar.
Okay. So our first order of business is the election of officers, and then we'll do the approval of the 2024 meeting schedule. What was included in your package?
Motion,
We will need a nomination for chair and for co-chair and for secretary.
and I really recommend Cindy as your secretary.
Right.
While I filled in a couple of months,
Right.
it wasn't the best, so.
I second that nomination. Can we second it?
I can't
He can't make a
the
motion. The
so-
motion will have to come from the
Oh,
board
I
to
thought we were
nominate
doing
a
that.
individual chair, co-chair, and secretary. You can-
Currently-
You can do the current members to stay in their positions if you would like.
Okay.
In that case, Mr. Beer and Ms. Slagle can't make the motion, so
So I'll make a motion to keep them at current.
Okay. With the secretary being
Cindy.
Cindy. Okay.
Cindy Boudreaux, okay.
Second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, so we've approved that. And then approval of the 2024 meeting schedule. Is there any conflicts that anyone has seen?
And just for the audience that may be watching from home, there is the proposed deadline on the screen. Or the meeting schedule.
Do I have a motion to accept as stated?
I move to accept the deadlines and the meeting dates.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so motion carries unanimously on both of those items. Okay, first order of business is BOA 23.10. It's a public hearing to consider the request of the applicants Kristen Misty Dias on behalf of the owner Fountain of Youth LLC for a special exception. Staff, would you give us a report on that, please?
Yeah. And we've actually got two kind of similar cases about a use tonight. I think they should be relatively easy. I'm going to let Mike present the packets he put together. Just want to kind of explain a little bit about the clinic uses. Right now, our zoning ordinance doesn't have a lot of distinction between medical uses. So a medical spa, while a spa, massage parlor, or things like that would not require approval, but the medical component does. It's kind of defined as a clinic. That we would gladly accept any feedback on that. If there's ways some other zoning ordinances kind of separate some of those medical, what do you want, what gets fast-tracked, what may be not problematic, but what may need more further reviews, such as hospitals or large clinics, or, certain things that, based on the use, that may provide some challenges to adjacent properties. So I think both of the ones we have tonight are relatively easy. We would gladly accept any feedback if you think we shouldn't be bringing all these to you, and should more closely define some of those medical uses so that some gets the fast track, some gets, further reviews. But Mike, you come on and move through these. If there's any questions on that, we'll stay around after these two cases if you have any questions, and we can talk about that.
Good evening, board. So I'm Mike Jeffries with the city of Fairhope. And this is case BOA 2310, Fountain of Youth LLC, requesting the special exception to allow Youth Aesthetics Medical Clinic at Publix at Point Clear inside Unit 7. The property is zoned B2 General Business District, and the clinic use is permitted on appeal and subject to the special conditions. On the map is the aerial on the right and the zoning map on the left. This is located at the corner of Old Battles Road, or County Road 34, and Greeno Road, or Highway 98. It's the new public shopping center on the south side of Greeno that has been installed. And this is one of the units that is joined to that Publix shopping center. The site plan on the next screen, you can see it's located at Unit 7, called out the fourth building from the north side of that complete structure. Kind of as Hunter was describing, the zoning ordinance, we have a professional office, and is a building occupied by a profession and offering professional services that has occasional on-site contact with clients or customers. And the clinic use defined as a use for care, diagnosis, and treatment of ailing, infirm, or injured person or in need of medical and surgical attention, but who are not provided with board. The not provided with board is kind of a distinction. If it's a hospital, then they may have overnight stays, but that is the biggest distinction. During the review, with the area that it's located, staff did not see any outstanding characteristics with the surrounding that had any concern. Therefore, staff recommends approval of the special exception for the clinic use for the site known as Fountain of Youth LLC. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on behalf of staff. And we have Mr. Dias is with us tonight that can answer questions on behalf of the applicant.
Will any surgeries be done on site?
I'll defer the specific uses inside
Okay.
of this medical spa to the applicant.
Okay. Okay. The applicant would come up and speak in the mic we're being recorded, please. If you'll state your name and address for us.
I'm Dr. Chris Dias. Do you want the address of the clinic or my address? I live at 17544 Pierce Road in Fairhope.
Right.
No, ma'am, there will not be any surgeries performed there. This is a medical weight loss clinic partially. We do some light aesthetics like Botox and fillers, and that's about it. Some light laser work as well.
And sometimes it gets really nitpicky a little bit, you know, with the physicians board that's required, and that even nationally, I think, whether nurse anesthetists can perform that work, they cannot.
Right. Certain things, like in the state of Alabama, Botox and fillers are not, you can't, a nurse practitioner may not do those things. That's what I do. I do the fillers and the Botox. But I'm a general surgeon, and I practice at Mobile Infirmary, travel there every day back and forth from here. Any kind of surgery item that may happen or would never be done in this clinic, okay? That's for surgery at the infirmary or
Okay.
Thomas. Any other questions?
Any other questions?
Thank you.
Okay. We'll now open it to the public portion. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this? Okay. We'll close the public portion if there's nobody for that. And members, do we have a motion and any discussion?
Make a motion to approve based on the staff recommendations.
I second.
Okay, all in favor, we'll take a roll call vote. I'll start at the end. Yeah.
Aye.
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 Okay, motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we've got one more. It's BOA 2311, and it is a public hearing to consider the request of the applicant Alexander Minnie on behalf of the owner for a special exception for medical office property zone B2.
Thank you. So this is Alexander Monet. This will be Monet Health PC. As you said, the property is zoned B2. Proposed clinic will use an office space that is located inside of an existing pharmacy. The location is near the corner of Fairhope Avenue and State Highway 181. On the left is the zoning map. On the right is the aerial. Property is surrounded by B2 to the north, to the south, and to the west, and then State Highway 181 directly to the east. On the right-hand screen, you can kind of see the image highlighted. Here is the site plan of sorts for the project. There is a small 180 square foot office located inside of this building that the tenant will be leasing out for the medical office. What is unique about this medical office, and I'll let the applicant go into more details on it exactly, but as we understand it, it is a doctor-only office. You'll have the doctor and the patient. There is not a staff, there's not a lobby and waiting room, there's not another 2 or 3 doctors that will be in here. It's strictly a kind of a one-on-one between the doctor and the patient. I'm not going to go over the definitions between professional office and clinic, but on there very similar. And before I get to the approval, I do want to say that with this, being a multiple tenant building, we also reviewed this to be sure that there is not more than 2 occupants per building. A third occupant will trigger a separate review required by the planning department, and that review would go to planning commission. But as I understand it, and we're still looking into the property itself to be sure, there are some signs that are out front that I believe go to either a occupation that is no longer there or to a business that is off-site. So any signs, or if there is multiple tenants, would also require this review. This is for the intended use for the clinic on this property itself. And I'll be happy to answer any questions, or I guess staff recommends approval of the special exception for clinic use for the site known as Monet Health Primary Care.
Is this a separate, is this separated from the pharmacy, or is it in the pharmacy?
It is in the same building as the pharmacy, but it is a different office when you walk in
So it's got its own entrance?
to that building.
It's got its own entrance?
No.
I believe they're using the same entrance as
Same
the
entrance.
pharmacy, and then it's a separate room inside of that building. But
It's on the left as you come in the
Cor-
front door, right?
Correct.
So you go through the pharmacy to go into this separate,
Not quite. There's a door, you walk in, and his
Oh.
place is right here.
You won't walk
Pharmacy is-
through the pharmacy. You'll use the front door to get in to the building itself, and then to your left would be
Okay.
the office. So you're not, and then the pharmacy is kind of a symbiotic relationship that they're preparing to have between the doctor and the pharmacy itself. And Dr. Monet is with us tonight and can answer any questions that you may have that are more particular that I may not be privy to.
So what is the Extravagant Hands Barber Shop? What is that,
So
what
this-
used to be there?
This image was taken, I believe, probably off of a Google Images, and that is a previous business that was in there, but they are no longer located in that.
All right.
And I believe there was 4 businesses, if you drive by the sign, there was 4 businesses on the side, but some of those are signs, for instance, the
There-
storage behind is on a separate piece of property. So as signage is revised, there will be some.
The signs will have to come into conformance with our current sign ordinance if this is approved and they move forward with it, which would include moving the off-site signs to on-site. And I think there's Urban Property is another business sign that is up there that is no longer operated out of that building.
So what kind of medicine is being performed in there?
We'll let the applicant, yeah. If you'll state your name and add home address for us for the record, please.
Excellent. Good afternoon. Alexander Monet. I'm a primary care physician. I live at 11750 off of County Road 32. And so this is a really cool concept. I'm very excited about this. Again, as Mr. Jeffries pointed out, it's directly me and my patients. There's no staff. When you call my office, you get me. It's basically kind of what I like to say is it's concierge medicine without the concierge cost. It's for every person. You're going to come in, we're going to sit together, and it's direct primary care. So to answer your question a little bit more fully, yes, the building is one building, but you walk in, I have a separate entry, as Ms. Slagle said, but it's for hours that the pharmacy is not open, there is he has an enclosure for the pharmacy, so it's completely separate.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not, yes, of course, a pharmacy and a primary care doc can work together, but we are completely separate entities. There's not going to be, my patients are not going to have to use Eastern Pharmacy by no means. So it's a small kind of practice, as you can see, but again, I'm trying to cut out everything that is unnecessary to take out patient care. So it's going to be me and the patient.
And the insurance companies?
No, ma'am.
No,
No,
no
ma'am.
insurance.
No, ma'am. I take all insurance, but it's going to be, I don't bill any insurance. So it's going to be a membership-based practice, of course, but very, very low fees, less than your phone bill.
And do you take Medicare patients?
Yes, ma'am. I do take Medicare. I don't bill Medicare.
Right.
I've opted out of Medicare, but I can still, as a board-certified physician in the state of Alabama, I can still order all those services. So if a Medicare patient chose to use me, it's access, right? So we are dying as a medical system because we don't have access to our providers. And so this is kind of allowing you to call me. You're going to have direct access with me. I can still order your lab work. I can still do your wellness exams. But I will not be, you're not going to get that surprise bill in 90 days for services that were rendered that you didn't know even happened. So everything's up front. There's a fee schedule. You know exactly what you are getting for this membership.
Will the patient apply to the insurance companies, or there's no reimbursement?
No, ma'am, they wouldn't need to.
They wouldn't need to.
They would not need to.
Okay.
If, heavens forbid, they're still going to, this is not insurance.
Right, I understand.
So they're
Okay.
still going to keep their same insurance plan. If, and whatever insurance plan best fit their family plan, that's what they're going to have.
Okay. Interesting.
In a good way, I hope.
So this is in lieu of insurance? Is that what you're saying?
No, sir. They're still going to keep their own insurance plan. And again, I'm not going to be advising them on what insurance plan to keep or hold or anything. It's being in primary care for 15 years out of residency, I often got patients come to me and, hey, I've been calling your office for 2 weeks, or they're sitting in front of me, they're like, I talked to your nurse, what happened? Why haven't I got my medication? As a primary care physician, that is, it stabs me in the heart. That shouldn't happen. And so this, hopefully, if they can text me, if they can call me, if they can message me directly, none of that should happen. And my hope is that this provides better patient interaction and care.
So basically, you pay a fee, you come see you, and that takes care of office visits, everything else. Your insurance still covers going and get your blood work and everything else, if you need that.
It can, depending on your insurance plan, right? So if you wanted to use your Gold Plus plan through Blue Cross and you're paying, these high premiums and they're covering your medications and your lab fees and all that, and you want to use that, by all means. But there is free market, LabCorp will charge you cash prices for certain labs. Open MRI, you can do radiographic studies for a small margin of the cost of what these tests are actually getting billed at. And so the cool part about this is I can sit with my patients and say, okay, you've chosen this plan. This is what it's likely going to cost you, or we can try to free market it, and this is what's going to cost you with no hidden fees. I don't take any of that. That's not, it's really me trying to bring, light upon primary care. These fees don't need to be what they are. I can do, 99% of what a patient needs throughout the year in my office in 180 square feet. So.
It's kind of a la carte.
Yeah.
Pick and choose.
It's again, it's a passion. I've been thinking about this type of practice for 10 years and was never in a position to actually do it. So, you see my kind of novel and you think clinical practice, like how are you ever going to do that? Again, there's no fluff. It's me and the patient.
Like the old days, you can take chickens and goats and serve chocolate chip cookies.
It's funny that you mentioned that because when I was trained at LSU, and it was a we didn't have any other residents. So we still made house calls, we still did, everything that kind of country doctor was kind of used to do, And this concept, this allows me to spend the time, since I'm going to have a panel, I can spend 30 minutes with the patient, 60 minutes with the patient. I can know your parents, I can know your children. That's what I want to bring back to primary care. I will still make house calls if they ask, if they're too sick to get out of bed. If they want to do telemedicine, we can do that too. It's access, communication. And when I first came to Fairhope 6 years ago, and I was working through Thomas and infirmary, I was making house calls then. It just, the current system doesn't allow you to do that because it takes an hour to go see a patient, and the reimbursement you can't get out of the clinic. With this model, I can, and I can come to you and bring you exactly what you need when you need it.
Any other questions? All right, thank
I
you.
appreciate your time.
This time we'll open it to the public. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak for or against this proposal? We'll close the public portion. Board members, may I have a motion and any discussion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, we'll take a roll call vote.
Aye.
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 Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Is there any meetings for next month?
We do have a meeting next month.
Okay.
We have one agenda item.
Great.
All right, so when you, can I,
If
Sure.
any other conversation, yeah, we'll be happy to.
okay.
Yeah.
So you started out by saying to expedite, fast track some of these.
And I think this last one, I don't know if the other one is quite the same, but certainly, and this would be more for planning commission, because, and ultimately city council if we made a amendment to the zoning ordinance. And it's not fast, okay? I'm just, this is just kind of the start of a conversation. A lot of cities do separate out some medical uses. The primary care physician that had an office that's not seeing, 90 patients a day and generating the traffic and the intense use, that almost falls under more professional offices and kind of fits in wherever professional office is allowed, and can be a by right use. Clinics that generate either higher, but somewhere in between that and the hospital or the overnight care, can be a clinic. I mean, we see a lot, more times than not, it is, I can't think of anything that's not branded, so the generic term doc in the box, that, I didn't want to say a specific name, but Africare was in front of you before. That was one that did. That model, from a zoning standpoint, is we have a business. We own a building, and then we rent doctors to man that practice a lot of times. There's no tie to that owner that's there on a day-to-day basis. I think that does more align itself with a clinic. Are they there? Are they monitoring the goings-on in the day-to-day operations? I think that's an important concept and a distinction between the two. How you write that into a zoning ordinance, you can do it multiple ways, but is that something we want to experience, or just keep bringing basically anything medical right now, unless it's in the medical overlay district, should be coming to you guys. If it's a physician, and it's a use, it should be coming to you. As you can see, sometimes they're not hard, but, is that something we want to take a look at?
A little bit, I think it protects our community, because now we're getting this medical marijuana coming up and all that stuff. So I think by coming to us, it gives us an opportunity to protect.
And certainly
surroundings
that
area.
would, just as FYI on that, with Alabama allowing the medical cannabis, one of the first steps that has to, that has to happen, is a local city council or county commission has to draft an ordinance to apply that goes to the state that says they're allowed in this city. That conversation came up about a year ago. It was debated in quite a few council meetings, but they elected not to adopt that. So in the city limits, there wouldn't be no medical cannabis
Can they
either.
change it?
They could.
They could.
They could. And there's a few different categories that kind of get, I think the state of Alabama at least was kind of trying a hybrid model from other states. So whether it's a dispensary, a clinic, a grow operation, there's different aspects that they can be, wouldn't be appropriate everywhere. But we didn't get that far down the road because the council did not adopt it at this point. So we won't see those, but there are certain other large clinics that maybe, we need to see, we need to review. And this type operation we're seeing less and less, the kind of one-person shop, whether that has a small staff or not. But that's what falls in line with the professional office, I think, that we could try to separate out. With a med spa, that can be based on scale. It's hard to do something based on scale. You see 2 patients a day or you see 20 if you're this, because we're about the use. If you're doing this, it's hard to write that about the intensity, but we can try. It's just, if y'all don't mind these, it's relatively easy most of the time. If we think there is something to be concerned about, obviously you'll see that, and we'll try to steer that to another solution before it's in front of you, but might have some
So if we
challenging.
approve it for one person and they sell it to someone else, do they have to come back to us?
It's a very good question. If it's the same, and I'll tell you what, as the planning director, what my interpretation is, and I'm up for being challenged on this as a group that's responsible for this growth. If it's very similar, I don't make them come back. But if this one practitioner office now, the pharmacy goes out of business and all of a sudden they want 12 doctors and it's a different model, it's a different business plan, then yes, I would expect that to come to you. But if one primary care physician retired and handed it over to another one coming in, I wouldn't bring that back to you. It's already approved. The use itself is so similar, I don't think that bureaucracy is necessary. And that sometimes gets a little bit, yeah, there is some time, and I think we have a little bit of flexibility there, but there is, ideally you want that to happen within a year. One doctor goes out, another one moves in. If it sits idle for 15 years, we may, but after a year, if it sits idle, not being used, 180 for the use. Yeah, we've got, if you'll recall in our zoning ordinance, we've got non-conforming uses, non-conforming lots, and non-conforming buildings. So that would fall under the use. Yeah. So, yeah, so that's, and sometimes I think what got a little tricky for the previous applicant we saw, they have construction and they actually just didn't think about getting approval for this. So they're rolling the dice a little bit. They're under construction on their interior build out. They could, if this didn't work, they could have a spa, but maybe not the medical portion of the spa. So, I mean, I give everybody the heads up. I'm not a decision maker here. I feel confident we support it, but we're obviously, until we get to this meeting, have a public hearing, that could change. But it doesn't hurt our feelings. I mean, it's easy for things like this, and sometimes you just feel bad for, okay, if we're all in agreement, this seems like pretty streamlined, do we have to go through the hurdles to do it? But I think you're right, it's hard to, where do you draw that line? What does have to come and what doesn't have to come? And I think
What
that's
is the delay for somebody like him, 1 month?
a month usually from the application to the meeting is the delay. Yeah.
So, and
Yeah, it's
By
2
the
months
time the
from usually we first start talking to people.
Yeah, by the time we initiate the conversation, and then they gather the information they need to be able to submit by one of the deadlines. It kind of depends on what day, what part of the month did we start the conversation? Was it 3 days after our last submittal deadline, or is it a week before the submittal deadline on what that, how that delay is felt by the applicant?
And that's kind of the way I perceive it. I mean, if you can, with something like that, it's a professional office building, it basically falls in line. It wouldn't necessarily have to come through, and then it helps that person not have to wait 2 months to go through the process.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not sure we could come up with a solution that would make it happy. You know, when you look at pros and cons of doing that, one of the things in the city of Fairhope we did quite a few years ago was create a medical overlay district. It's very large, and there's a lot of properties to be utilized for that. And the intent there was to create a concentration of medical uses that can kind of play with one another. So one way to view it is, well, if you're there, we're going to expedite, you know, your reviews. If you're in this area where we've said our long-range goal is to have that type of industry, if you will. If you're out, you know, then we need to review it. So that's kind of the way the zoning ordinance is set up. And there's quite a little bit of space left in the medical overlay district. It's just, you know, we can't control when properties come up or what people want to do with them when they do come up. And as y'all can know, that where that area is, it's from Morphe all the way down to Greeno Lane, pretty much from 181 to Ingleside? Greeno to Ingleside. And so it's a large area. So
if somebody has to wait 2 months, does that really impede them that much? I mean, I know they want a quick answer.
I mean, I think every client is different. I can't speak for either of the two that were here tonight. If somebody's got the time, if we've been in the loop from day one, it's usually not too much of a problem. The realtor didn't tell them until the end, you know, and they're already 2 months in, and then it's a surprise when they come get a building permit. And they're expecting it to take 30 days for some small interior renovations, and it's going to take 2 months before they can start the work. Sure, that can be burdensome. I'm not sure we need to solve all those problems with a zoning ordinance amendment. You know, sometimes that's just, let's do a better job of educating people on what's required. Be more accessible for those questions. But there's also the avenue of maybe we do look at something, some threshold. That can be a challenge getting through as an amendment. Don't have the most capacity right now for those amendments. Unless y'all really want to push that, I'm going to just ride this out. And
Yeah, write it out. I mean, it's just consideration,
Sure.
you know, especially people trying to come in and
I just want to put it on the radar, so as we move forward, you know, we can be kind of thinking about that. and
Maybe
seeing
that would be almost our comprehensive plan, long-term comprehensive plan.
So we hope, our goal is to have our comprehensive plan finished by February. The second phase of that is to start amending our regulations to fall in line with any changes made to that long-range plan. So that could be a good opportunity to take a look. When we kind of update the bulk of that, our current ordinance was done about 2003 to 2005. So as we're not, you know, there's not a wholesale change. I don't think we need to scrap everything. I think a lot of what we've got is working really well. But as we take a new look at some of those, might be a good time to get those in. So maybe in the next 18 months to 2 years, we can have something and consider these small changes.
I like your approach in terms of probably better educating individuals, because that's just part of the business planning process, how you do that.
Right.
That's, to me, it's the big question.
It's a challenge every day because there's new people in the industry every day. I have went and spoken at the Baldwin County Realtors Association, and we've had meetings, so you can do as much outreach as possible. But tomorrow, there's going to be a new person, and that doesn't know, and, it's, you can't solve that.
Right.
Experience is really what, lets know, but I think being accessible, and I think we've done a great job of that, of trying to be more accessible. It's been a little bit of a challenge with, we've grown with staffing, but it seems like we're always could use just a couple more people. So that sometimes it takes a day or two to get an answer. That's a challenge, and right now, I think 48 hours is a very admirable goal to get an answer for everything with some of the volume we're dealing with. But I certainly would love to hear any feedback if you have it. Y'all got a direct line to us. Let us know if you see anything, where anybody looking at other people's zoning or what other people are doing. If you see any ideas that work well, you think it works well, we'll be happy to entertain those.
Thank you.
Mhm.
We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, thank you.
It is?
As far as your business.